today we're here to see Denise Ohio's documentary, Verona. And it's also showing at 2 and 7 o'clock tomorrow at the Historic Everett Theater. That's correct, right, timing? But you have to pay to see that. As you know, here at the library, it's always free. It's fitting that the premiere showing of this video is here at Everett Public Library because this institution has been collecting material about the Everett Massacre for the past 40 years. And we are well known as an authority on the Everett Massacre, such as there is for such an event that has so many question marks surrounding it. Go to our website sometime. Actually, the website for this event is a very good gateway to our resources on the Everett Massacre. www.epls.org/EMC, Everett Massacre Centennial. And you'll see there are images, podcasts, interviews with old-timers, songs, and short films. And if you've got any questions about the Everett Massacre, you might find them there. Find the answers there. Denise has worked with us as a media consultant for many years. She's an independent filmmaker and lives with her partner outside of Monroe. She learned about the Everett Massacre in about 2001 and has been obsessed with it since. I've talked to her some, and I can attest that she has turned over every rock and examined the minutest piece of evidence to try to piece together what happened on that day. And I'm as anxious as you are to see what she's come up with, so let's do that. Do we have to turn it off?
Yeah, we took the lights.
Let me hit the lights.
Are there any chairs, like down there by the young man? Is that an empty chair?
Is there an empty chair between you two? No.
Can I get more chairs, please?
Well, I'm afraid we've got about as many chairs as we can.
Okay.
We've got 100 chairs.
There's one right here.
I'll take it. Where are you?
That'd be worth waiting.
How long is the movie? Hour and a half.
So that's all we're going to see.
That's the kill the other half.
Based on real fast values, churches, strong union leadership, strong socialist party could end up in such desperate circumstances in 1960. Okay.
Denise is here and David, to answer any questions people might have about what they've just seen. Does anybody want to start it off? We got one gentleman back here.
How did Hewitt originally know Rockefeller to get the money invested to formulate Everett?
Sure. Repeat the question, please.
Yeah, the original connection between Henry Hewitt and Rockefeller was actually through Charles Colby. Hewitt had worked with Colby when Hewitt was a timber cruiser and contractor back in Wisconsin, and Colby was running Wisconsin Central Railway. Colby knew Rockefeller because they were fellow Baptists at the Fifth Avenue Baptist Church in New York City, and that they had also close ties to the Republican Party, and they've been involved in various business ventures. Colby had invested money for Rockefeller in a number of different enterprises, and previously with much greater success than ever in the Pacific Northwest. It's investments that were made here. Essentially the situation of Hewitt and Colby, two former Wisconsin associates who wound up on the board of directors of the Northern Pacific Railway, and therefore knew where some of the points had to be that were going to be of key importance on the Pacific Rim here in relation to Jim Hill's Great Northern Railway that came very shortly thereafter. It's the complexity, that's the general overview. The complexity of those relationships is much more profound than that, including a close friendship between Charles Colby's son and John D. Rockefeller Jr., who were both approximately the same age, had the same learning disabilities, and wound up in school together right straight through college. So there were political, business, familial connections all the way with that.
What were the differences, if any, between the need for the AFL and
Your turn.
Okay, the question the young man asked was, what were the differences between the IWW and the AFL? And my response was, oh my. Honey, that could be a TV series. Maybe it will be. Wouldn't that be nice? We actually have television about labor.
I can give it
Labor.
a 20-second break.
You want to give me 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The AFL was organized along trade unions or craft unions, which meant that individuals were organized by, and it was all essentially like disparate groups. So that, for instance, it also was shaped up in such a way that race and gender and a lot of other things came into it in ways that the IWW represented an international syndicalism. There was going to be one union for the whole world, and that anybody who worked in industry would all have representation. Did I get this right? Okay, and the plan was that they would therefore represent even the least of the people who had to work in industry. An injury to one is an injury to all, was the basic motto that they used. OBU, one big union, so that everybody got represented, regardless of what color they were, what sex they were, whether or not they worked in the upper echelons of the business or at the lower end, and also that all this would be against an economic scheme that was no longer capitalism. This would have to be reworked so that the people who worked in the mills owned the mills. 2 minutes left.
At the end here, it said that the Verona was burned in 1936.
Yeah.
But isn't it the case that the Verona is going to be coming up on the 12th?
That is the Virginia Bee, not the Verona.
Oh.
Which, if you have a chance, you should take a ride on the Virginia Bee. She's a lovely ship. She's the last of the Mosquito fleet. And what's amazing about it is that as you walk around this boat, we went on it, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and even we went on it, and you feel like you're literally a foot away from the water, and everything is made of wood, and you're on salt water, and you think, well, you don't think, you actually have your life kind of flash before your eyes for a moment. But it's a beautiful boat, and you should give it a try, because it's also the kind of ship that you walk around, and you start talking to strangers. It's exactly that kind of an experience. Yeah.
The Virginia Bee was in my family.
Awesome.
It was my great aunt's, her husband's family that owned the Virginia Bee.
Awesome.
Yeah. And my dad worked on it every summer.
Well, there's, I think she got there for you.
With the sheriff Ukraine being so involved in this whole deal, where were the Everett City Police? Did they not exist yet?
Oh, no, they existed, and in fact, Jefferson Beard had been an Everett City police officer before he moved to the sheriff's office. There had been a change in city government, so they had a safety commissioner, which was the equivalent of the police chief. And basically, the key difference between the city police and the sheriff is that the sheriff could point at anybody and say, you're a deputy, you're a deputy, you're a deputy. You can't do that with city police. They wanted a lot of people because they were patrolling the entire county, not just Everett. So when McRae took over after the riot, he could then deputize a lot of people, and they would be covered under the umbrella of his power. Yes, right there, I don't know you. Yeah.
So when you first started working on this film, Denise, you talked a lot about how challenging it was to get local Everett residents to talk to you about this event, even 80 years, however many years ago, 90 years at that point. So I think I'd like you to talk about that a little bit.
I was actually much luckier because Margaret Riddle, who's right here, next to some guy, and David had already opened up a lot of those relationships. What I did is I just kept digging. I would hear that somebody, for instance, this woman whose family owned the Virginia Bee. If I was doing a documentary about the Virginia Bee, you and I would have your number. I would be calling you every other week to see if you found anything in any old family scrapbooks. But with this, because Margaret and David had already done so much work, and it was here at the library, I could actually comb through that material and pick things up. One of the big challenges, of course, is that the daughters of Charlie Curtis, no one had ever talked to them. And in fact, they didn't know what happened to their father until, Grace Ridgway Curtis lived to be 101 years old and died in the 1970s. And they didn't know what happened to their father until just before she died. And it was an accident. Charlotte, the older one, lived in California, and she happened to be visiting. And someone called Grace to see if Grace would like to come to an Everett Massacre commemoration in the 1970s. And Grace got very upset on the phone and slammed the phone down. And said, I have spent my entire life protecting my children. And her daughters were like, Mom, what's going on? And they found out what happened, and they were still very upset. These were very proper ladies, and they were not going to open their hearts to me on camera. But it still caused them a great deal of pain, because Charlotte was 10, and Celia was 7, so we both remember their father. So, but finding them that was actually, that took a bit of patience. The family was very understanding, and Charlotte had just been up here to visit her sister, so I was able to figure it out. They were willing to give me about 20 minutes, and then I had to go away because they were busy. Yeah.
Where did the Beverly Park incident occur geographically?
That.
I lived there, I can explain. Well, the interurban trail goes right over Beverly, right there at that point. There's a, that's not that they put a stoplight in where the interurban trail goes across the main road, right at the substation there at Beverly Park. There were cattle guards in place at that time to protect animals that would so they had a crossing. And also the location of the station was changed at one point, but was a little bit further north.
Are you talking about like Beverly Boulevard and Madison here in the city?
Yeah, out toward, what would be the?
East Casino.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
At that time, of course, that was reasonably remote.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what are the positive effects, no matter how short lasting, of that?
This young man just asked, what were the positive effects of the Everett Massacre?
Would you repeat the question again?
Sure, this young man asked, what were the positive effects of the Everett Massacre?
Denise,
I've got one. No, I've got it, Dave.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. One of the things that happened, I don't see any benefit to the killing. Killing is killing, dead people are dead people. But prior to that, there were people from the IWW and people from the AFLU and people from here in town who stood up for their civil rights. They stood up on soapboxes, they got beat up, they got arrested. Tells you five, don't do it. Started a second-class boarding house and was a widow and had 2 kids. And she stood up on a soapbox to speak her mind. That takes a tremendous amount of courage, and I have a great deal of respect for everybody who did that. And so when I think about this event, it isn't the massacre and the killing that gets me. It is the courage that came before and after, and the grief. All of those people who died, all those people who lost. Somebody grieved for them. Somebody mourned. I hope. Because even worse is if nobody cared at all. But you see, I do care. It took me 15 years to make this movie. You weren't even alive then. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
I just want to say, this is wonderful. I just was mesmerized by it. When can we buy it?
Thank you, and I'll take your money right now. The movie is not sold yet. I have a walk into HBO. I have a walk into Independent Lens with UBS, but that can take a while. Normally, I would not share something like this for free because I have a thing about working for free. But one of the reasons that I was able to work on this particular project was because the collection here is so deep and it is so beautiful. I would probably say about 80% of the still images that you saw were from the Everett Public Library. And
To which we owe thanks to David Dilgard.
yeah, thanks, Dave. I'll get to that too. And the Labor Day parade footage that you saw down Hood Avenue, that was 1916, shot here. That really was Hood Avenue. And I got that print from the Library of Congress. That's a fresh print from the archival negative. And so when I'm on my system, I can actually see these guys' faces. And I'm like, David, we should start identifying some of these guys. Because they're townies. They're from here. I see somebody over there I know. Bill? The shingle weaver guy who was at the stand-up shingle saw is sitting right over there. Hey, Bill. He's a very nice man, and that machinery he uses is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Oh, Brett, over here.
Like my dad and his brother joined the IWW. They were, and after Everett. And one of the reasons why they went in, they saw the conditions in the mills, and they were both loggers. One of them became a mill owner, and as a result, I'm sure he was very important to him to put in safety devices and increase it. I think it probably maybe built a fire underneath some of the other unions. Some of the other unions that press for like the men's compensation, workmen's compensation, and some other things that came about.
That's not the first time that I've had somebody give credit to the IWW that maybe they didn't deserve. Most of the changes in the mill, especially around this kind of time period, came about because of World War I. The United States got into a wartime economy. And so right then, Colonel Disk and and the 4L were willing to give people in the lumber industry, the workers, pretty much whatever they wanted as long as they kept working. And then, of course, later, then we had the advances in safety equipment and stuff, but the IWW was not really a power by then. I think the IWW was very inspirational, and I do think that what they offered was the sense of camaraderie, loyalty, and the idea of an injury to one is an injury to all. Which I think is, that's not a bad model. And I think that did carry forward across a bunch of other labor organizations later. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Norm Clark's position was that the massacre was basically a tragic incident that could have and should have been avoided, but that in terms of its political or economic or technological effects was really irrelevant. However, over the years, as Denise well knows, because she's done some of the best digging in that area, when you're talking to people who lived through that era and into the immediately following years, they tended to believe that the individuals like the passengers on the Verona died for them. That in fact those deaths can't be without meaning. That there has to be something that changed because these people gave the biggest thing they had to give. And they see, when they look back, when we did the interviewing with people who were whistle punks or doing any kind of menial and dangerous work in the woods or in the mills, they saw their lives improve in the immediate decade. Arguably, probably in a debate, you'd have a hard time saying that was radical labor activity that did it. In most cases, it was the war. And it was the government's discovery of the necessity of improving working conditions if you expected to be able to produce and win the war. Those changes were made for much less noble reasons than the ones that the IWW died for. But the fact is that people believed, and that was always my kind of side argument with Norm. If large numbers of people lived the rest of their lives believing that the courage of those individuals who died in Everett was expended on their behalf, isn't it true? In fact, that they saw that courage, they saw that sacrifice, and they lived the rest of their lives shaped by that having been done for them. So you can't tell me that that didn't make a difference in their lives. You couldn't tell them that because you've never been punched out by an 85-year-old ex-weaver, But they believed that. Their belief was that sacrifice made a difference in the lives of the workers and the people who lived.
So, what was your impetus, or not impetus, but how did you find out about the Everett Massacre in 2001?
All his fault.
And what kept you to keep digging?
Years ago, I was asked to do a meeting with a bunch of people who wanted to make a fiction feature film based on this story. And again, it's a great idea. Again, I'd love to see a TV series like Game of Thrones, but anyway, that's kind of a funny story. So I was invited to sit in because I actually made movies and had sold them. And this one producer came in, and she had an entourage of like 4 people. And this other guy came in, and he had 2 people. And then Daryl Chapman from the IBEW came in driving along this guy. And David was sitting at one end of this table, at a very long table, and I was sitting at the other end. And everybody's talking about this movie and how we put it together and blah, 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 blah. And David and I shared this look across the length of the table. And then there was a moment of silence, and David told the story of what had happened. And I was immediately like, I have to know more about this. Because you don't just wake up one morning and decide to go shoot somebody. So I started coming into the library because I was like, so if we put this movie together, whatever, what else have we got, whatever material we have, what else is there about the story? And the more that I learned, the more I realized my idea of what the story was about was there was a different direction to go that was more interesting, more insightful, and possibly even maybe kind of socially beneficial than understanding the context. You know, I started this movie with that quote from Jay Gould. I can hire one half of the working class to kill the other half. Why do we let them get away with that? But anyway, sorry, I'm back. So I continue because I have crazy thoughts like that, because the humanity of these people is very important to me. Blacks and stuff are great, but recognizing the humanity of all of them is really important to me. And so I continue because you never know. You know, I keep waiting for John Luby's, you know, great nephew or great niece to send me a letter saying, you knew him, yeah, I knew him, or you go to the Wellers. Maybe we can find out who did they leave behind, what were their lives like. We know something about their deaths, but their lives are the things that really matter. So, and then the short answer is I need success.
It's fair. So I was 18 and looking for a senior project, something to write on. Couldn't find anything that captured my interest. My mom was like, do you know there was this crazy thing that happened in Everett in 1916? And I was like, what? Something happened in Everett? And then I started going to libraries and got hooked. And here I am 18 years later coming to Centennial. Like,
Get the tiger fire. You know, get the tiger fire. Yeah.
So, how do you see this event affecting the subsequent history of Everett? It wasn't talked about for 7 years, but it must have affected the city in some way. Any speculation on what?
Well, it would be irresponsible not to speculate. Well, first, the fact that it was a secret. And it was such a profound secret. And then David tells a story of being in high school and they had a copy of Walker Smith's book in the high school library. It was chained to a table or something. I mean, that right there tells you a lot. I mean, you could make a documentary about that alone. Why would they have a secret? So, the person who would probably be better at speculating is this guy right here, because he's lived in Everett his whole life. So, come here, you gotta speculate.
Yeah, I think for the community, then it was always a source of conflict, because then as now, you have the people who are related to the people who ran the mills, and then you have the rest of us who are related to the people that worked in the mills. And between those two groups, well, the Wobblies said, have nothing in common, right? Yeah, and for the community, I think it also meant that generations, there was this thing that happened somewhere there between the event and my birth when it became something that was shameful to talk about, something that was obscene in the same way as if it were sexually obscene. You just block it. You don't talk about it. You're not old enough to know about it yet. Don't bring it up. And for God's sake, don't be looking up books like that Everett Massacre book that's chained to the desk. And of course, that's from almost every viewpoint, the wrong way to deal with any of these things, regardless of what your eventual goal would be. Clearly, Dr. Clark turned a corner for all of us back in 1971 with a book called Milltown, which is still in print, justifiably after all these years, and is a must-read if you want to understand what was going on here. Now, quite frankly, this film is the next must, and I think it kind of has eclipsed Norm. It's so wonderful that she used those interviews with Norm Clark, which I've never seen him interviewed as well or as pertinently as she's done. But in a way, I think at this point you almost could skip Milltown and go directly to Denise's film, because what she's done is to put the humanity back into all of it. And I think that's what we were always trying to do. Margaret and I used to joke that we created the Northwest Room in the library here because we're trying to prove to everybody that the history of this town did not begin and end on the afternoon of Sunday, November 5th, 1916. There's this whole story before it, there's a whole story after it. There are all sorts of possibilities of what you can do with the knowledge that something like this happened right in your own backyard. But for this, it's taken a long time. And I think probably every community may have something similar to this, but if you're Tombstone, Arizona, all you do is just show the tourists where Big Nose Kate's saloon is, and the reenactment will be down there, because they just did 135, right? And they're still making a lot of tourist bucks off that. Came close that a couple of documentary filmmakers were going to do something about the Everett Massacre, and even during pre-production, we're beginning to flinch because you can sense these people really didn't know or have any idea what was going on. They wanted basically the gunfight at the OK Corral on the Everett City Dock instead. And of course, what we hadn't expected was this wonderful thing that Denise has made. I had no idea. I'd never seen it. And so you did, and I'm waiting now to see it again and again. This is an amazing piece of work. I mean, I'm prejudiced because it's my town, and I was born here, and I'm obsessed, as she is, with this topic. This is a wonderful piece of documentary filmmaking. I had no idea. She was at this. I've been too intimidated to even talk to her.
I told you I was crazy. That's very nice, but don't skip Norm Clark's book. Because the funny thing about Norm Clark, he was a tough interview because he's smarter than all of us if he knew it. And boy, you know, when you're questioning somebody in an interview, you often ask what look to be, well, you look like a dumbass because you're asking very simple questions. Because you're trying to get them to warm up, you're trying to get them to give you transitions so you can move from cut to cut, all this kind of stuff. And at the very beginning, I asked a couple of these questions, and he gave me a look like I might be the stupidest person you've ever met. But you know, you just kind of go, okay, yeah, we'll worry about that later. And then he relaxed. Unfortunately, he was ill, and he didn't live much longer after this. So I was very happy to meet him, much less to get this interview. Shirley Suttles, the daughter of Walter Smith, has since died. Dan Robinson, though, is still alive, and he's going to turn 90 in January. They're going to screen this. They're having a big family reunion, and they're going to screen this movie for him, and I'll do an extra cut of his interview. Celia has died. Charlotte died 2 years ago at the age of 104.
Wow.
You're still alive. Margaret, you're here. Jean Finley from the Maury Vashon Island Historical Society. She's still going strong. So, and Bill is still here. Still cutting shingles. So, with Norma, I felt I was very lucky to have a chance to even talk to him. But don't skip the book. He's actually a pretty good writer, and it's a pretty good story. I don't agree with everything. In a couple of places we don't agree at all. But he gives you an overview of what was actually going on. And both economically, but in terms of the UGAs and the forces that people were just out there. Chief is right there.
So what was that process like, going through all these different accounts and readings and sort of picking and choosing which ones were most accurate and which ones you're going to use? Looking at like Walter C. Smith, there are times where it's like, well, he was being dramatic for a certain purpose. So how would you navigate all these different voices behind the story?
That's a great question. I gathered up every possible version of the story I could find. And then I indexed all of it. And I have a big file. And I indexed that as newspaper accounts. I researched 11 different newspapers. I wrote down Walter C. Smith's book. And then there are depositions that were taken by the Coast Guard immediately after this event that were found in the National Archives, so I have those. The court transcript of the trial was burned in the 1930s, right? It was lost, the court transcript. But just recently, as in, like, in the past few months, the Levati collection purchased a partial complete court transcript, which I'll be going to get because I'm obsessed. And then I took a look at all of the different propaganda and the propaganda isn't just the RWW propaganda. Sometimes the newspapers definitely have their slant. Everybody has their own interest. So I went into it not trusting anybody. And then I started looking for affidavits and stuff that people swore to. And then I took all that stuff, put it in a big pile, and I just kept reading it and then referencing and cross-referencing. It took years. So we are going to be doing a book. We are going to do an annotated Everett Massacre. We're going to take Walkersmith's book, and we're going to break it down and start giving more of the background information. So when he mentions somebody, you can say, well, we found this guy, and here's where he was from, and all that kind of stuff. But then there comes to a point where you have to say, human nature is human nature. So take all these sources, read them all, get them all into your head, and then you have to say, well, I say anyway that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if I'm going to say, if I'm going to believe the Don McCrae rental line, I'm going to have to accept that members of the people opposing him may also have been written a lot. There were no angels, there are no devils. Everybody is capable of all sorts of different things. And so then I just went by, what do I know about human beings in certain situations? And then I backed it up with cross-references. Also, a lot of the Coast Guard transcript stuff, because it happened so soon after the event, I did tend to weight those. Because, for instance, the crew members on the ship, why would they lie? What possible benefit could they get? And often what they said, there was corroborating evidence for that. So I did tend to give them a little more weight.
The IWW members were a bunch of, characterize it, a bunch of itinerant, mostly immigrant, penniless men who traveled around a lot and were trying to make a revolution rather than actually being a member of a union working somewhere. Why did this occur? I think I saw, it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I saw an earlier version of your film at the Women's Film Festival. You asked that question several times. Why would you get the people at the bottom become, so many of them become revolutionaries and just hitchhike all over on trains, all over the country? But that's a very unusual thing to see historically.
Well, it wasn't an unusual event because all those crops, all those amber waves of grain, all that stuff had to be harvested. And you didn't have a combine harvester at the time. So people would have to go out and harvest that. So they followed the harvest from south to north up into Canada. This was not unusual at all to see people on the top of trains, modern trains, traveling around the country. And then they would come up north after the harvest was over and they would shovel snow off the railroad tracks. Why these guys would become revolutionaries strikes me as something pretty obvious. They were treated like garbage. And when you treat people, as David said, if you treat people like rats or cockroaches, at some point, their own self-respect, their own sense of self-worth, or their own desperation is going to come into play.
Well, compare that to the other movie, Days of Heaven, which I'm sure you've seen, right?
No.
Days of Heaven. Days of Heaven. Okay, well, it's about a bunch of people who are traveling, like you say, to do the agricultural harvest. They ride on top of trains, and
Is that a documentary?
No.
It's fiction. And fiction is made up? Okay.
It's the same era, 1910, 1915. Yeah. It seems to me that it is unusual for people in those desperate circumstances to try to organize some political revolution.
I don't think that they were organizing a political revolution. They were organizing an industrial revolution. Not like the 19th century, but the sense of owning your own product, being paid, not just what who defines what a fair day's wage is? Fair day's work for a fair day's wage. Who defines what that is? These guys were saying, we'll define it, not the bosses. That is revolutionary. So I think that's where those are connected. I don't think they weren't terribly interested in politics like ballot box stuff. I think they were much more, I'm not going to say own the means of production as much as own the means of what they themselves produced, their own work. Next. Okay, and then you next.
So, what happened to Sheriff McRae?
We're still trying to find out.
Really?
The last sign we have of him, the 1940 federal census, he was on the farm at Lacey that was leased, he didn't own it. That's where they moved after the defeat of all the Republicans in Olympia. And that's where he moved when, at the time that Madonna killed herself. And a next door neighbor actually gives the census canvasser information to the effect that Donald D. McRae is still living there, but the canvasser never signed. We've yet to find any record of his death or his burial whatsoever. For a while, I thought I had a hot prospect who had been up in British Columbia and died in the 1930s, but wrong guy for a lot of different reasons. And so we traced down possibilities, and it's a mystery. We're still trying to find out what became of it. Between up to 1940, we know that almost all the nasty things that the industrial workers of the world wished on him in the song that they used to sing in the jail to piss him off came to pass. Just about everything he had, he lost just about everything he had, and was living alone without. Well, we figured there's no probate looking for him because I don't think he had anything. He had no descendants. He had no loved ones. Everyone was gone. Everyone had deserted him, and he was there with animals that he wasn't any longer capable of taking care of. Friends and relatives from up here. So, aside from all the curses apparently having come to pass, we don't know what came down.
I'd like to add to that, which is another one of the many ironies of the story, which is my brother happened to mention, Don McRae hadn't been such an a-hole. Nobody would remember him. He's memorialized in this event. And now we're trying to understand who he is and what he did and all that kind of stuff. And it's just yet ironic that here's this guy who the Wobblies wish was forgotten, and yet through their own efforts is remembered. There's a woman over here.
Right at the end of it, or was it part of what the Wobblies had done? And or part of the piece of what they believed in was the abolition of capitalism?
The abolition?
Yeah, that sounds like,
Okay. I think your question is that I didn't talk about the politics of the NWW were following, and your point is that, but they were working toward the abolition of the wage system, and that's political. Okay.
Hey, Cam,
And
are you coming to the salon tonight?
all right. Great. Thank you very much.